I had always been the picture of health. I exercised regularly, never smoked, and barely drank. I stayed on top of my doctor's appointments, never missing a single checkup. So, when the doctor looked at me with that grave expression and uttered the words, "advanced Hodgkin's lymphoma," it felt like I had stepped into someone else's nightmare. I stared at him, waiting for a follow-up sentence, maybe a reassurance that it wasn't as bad as it sounded. But instead, he began explaining the stages, the treatment, the brutal effects of chemotherapy, and the low survival rates for late-stage patients. My brain barely processed it all. How could this happen? I went through every logical reason in my head. Did I inherit it? Was it stress? Did I eat something wrong? But the doctor's words cut through my spiraling thoughts. Cancer doesn't always come with a reason. That was the part that frustrated me the most. I had done everything right, yet here I was, being told I might not make it. I left the hospital with a stack of pamphlets, a detailed treatment plan, and a sense of impending doom pressing down on me. I wasn't ready to die. I refused to die. On the drive home, my hands were clammy on the wheel. My wedding ring felt heavy, like it was reminding me of what I had to lose. Clara, Sienna, my family, my home, my future. How was I going to tell them? I sat them down in the living room, forcing a smile as if that would soften the blow. I need to talk to you both about something important. Clara and Sienna exchanged a glance. My wife had that familiar look, half distracted, half expecting me to say something about work. My daughter, on the other hand, had her headphones draped around her neck, a clear indication she was only half listening. I took a deep breath. I have cancer. Silence. The air in the room thickened. Clara blinked, then frowned as if I had just spoken in another language. Sienna shifted uncomfortably. What? Clara finally spoke. It's called Hodgkin's lymphoma. The doctors say it's advanced. But there's a treatment plan, and I'm going to fight it. Still, nothing. No immediate tears, no dramatic gasps, just shock. Then Clara sat back against the couch and let out a breath. Sienna, my baby girl, looked down at her hands, her fingers fidgeting in her lap. She was old enough to understand what this meant. So, you could die? She whispered. That question hit harder than the diagnosis itself. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen, I said firmly. Clara rubbed her temples. But you're so healthy. I know. My voice wavered slightly, but I forced it steady. This isn't about what I did or didn't do. It's happening, and I need both of you with me. She nodded, but there was something in her expression that made my stomach tighten. It wasn't just fear, it was hesitation. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Clara scrolled through her phone beside me. The weight of reality was crushing me. Are you okay? I finally asked. She exhaled. I mean, what do you want me to say, Marcus? This is a lot. It was a lot for me too. I know, I said, swallowing my frustration. But I need to know you're with me in this. She hesitated. Again. Then she set her phone down and rolled onto her side. Of course I am. Through sickness and health, right? Something about the way she said it felt hollow. But I convinced myself I was just being paranoid. I needed to believe she would be there. The next morning, I began making arrangements. I had great insurance, a solid savings account, and a trust fund left by my grandfather. Our house was fully paid off, and I had set aside money for Sienna's college education. I wanted zero financial stress for my family. If anything happened to me, they would be okay. I spent hours talking to my financial advisor, updating my will, and ensuring Clara wouldn't have to worry if things didn't go well. But I was still determined to fight. A week later, chemotherapy began. If I thought I had prepared myself for the worst, I was dead wrong. The first session left me feeling like my body was shutting down. Everything hurt. My skin felt like it was burning from the inside out. My limbs were weak. Food tasted like metal. The drive home was a blur. When I stumbled into the house, Clara barely looked up from her laptop. Sienna was watching TV. I expected something. A hug, a reassuring word. How are you feeling? Instead, Clara muttered, dinner's in the fridge. That was the moment the first crack appeared. I told myself it was just a bad day for her too, that she was still processing things. But deep down, I felt it. Something was shifting. That night, I forced myself to eat, but every bite felt like chewing nails. When I tried to get up to rinse my plate, my legs nearly gave out. I gripped the counter, dizzy, nauseous, drained. Clara? My voice was weak. She glanced up from her phone. I think I need help getting upstairs. A pause. A long one. Then, Marcus, you need to try to do things on your own. You're not dying. My stomach twisted. I wasn't dying. Yet. But I was suffering. Still, I didn't argue. I just nodded, clenched my jaw, and forced myself up the stairs, gripping the railing like my life depended on it. I told myself it was just a bad day. But bad days started happening more and more. And so did the cracks in my marriage. I had cancer, but I was starting to wonder if I was losing more than just my health. The thing about chemotherapy is that it doesn't just attack the cancer. It attacks everything. My body felt like it was betraying me, every inch of it breaking down. The nausea was relentless, the dizziness unbearable. My muscles weakened to the point where standing for more than a few minutes left me feeling like I had run a marathon on broken legs. But the worst part wasn't the pain or the exhaustion. It was the loneliness. At first, Clara and Sienna tried. Clara prepared meals, helped me with medication, and made sure I was comfortable. Sienna would sit next to me and watch TV, at least keeping me company. But it didn't last. Within weeks, their patience began to crack. I noticed it in the little things. Clara sighing when I needed help getting up, Sienna rolling her eyes when I asked her to bring me water. I tried to ignore it. I told myself that maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe the chemo was making me paranoid, making me see things that weren't there. But then the small things turned into big things. It started with the mornings. I had early chemo sessions, brutal, exhausting sessions that left me feeling like I had been hit by a truck. Clara had always driven me to the hospital. But one morning, as I struggled to get out of bed, I realized she wasn't up. I called out. No answer. I forced myself to get to the bedroom door and knocked. Clara? We have to leave soon. A tired groan came from the other side. Take an Uber. I didn't sleep well last night. I stood there, stunned. An Uber? I was too weak to even dress myself properly, and she wanted me to take an Uber? I wanted to be angry. I wanted to yell. But I was too exhausted to even process it. So, I called for a ride. I sat in the back seat, staring out the window, trying to convince myself that this wasn't as bad as it seemed, that she was just tired, that she would make it up to me later. But she didn't. That night, when I got home, she didn't ask how my session went. She didn't even look up from her phone. Sienna wasn't any better. At first, I thought she was just avoiding me because she was scared. Seeing your father, once strong and independent, now barely able to stand without trembling, must have been terrifying. But soon, I realized it wasn't fear. It was frustration. Dad, can you get it yourself? She groaned one evening when I asked her to bring me a glass of water. I blinked. Sienna, I can barely walk today. She threw up her hands. Then maybe don't ask me every 5 minutes for something. I didn't ask for much. I didn't think I did. But to her, every request was an inconvenience. That night, I sat in my bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how I had become a burden in my own home. Then came the confrontation. I had noticed Clara barely spoke to me anymore. Meals were left in the fridge without a word. She stayed in the bedroom or on the phone for hours. When she was home, she was visibly irritated, snapping at the smallest things. I had to know why. I waited until Sienna was in her room, then forced myself to sit up on the couch as Clara walked past. Clara, we need to talk. She hesitated, then sighed and sat across from me. I swallowed hard. Do you feel like I'm a burden? She looked away. That told me everything. It's a lot, Marcus, she said finally. I didn't expect it to be this hard. I stared at her. Hard? Clara, I have cancer. She rubbed her temples. I know. Okay, but I didn't think it would change everything so much. I felt my stomach turn. Change everything? What did she expect? That I'd be sick, but still function like a normal husband? That I'd be dying but still smiling, making jokes, pretending everything was okay? She wasn't finished. It's just exhausting, Marcus. You don't understand how hard it is for us too. For them. I was the one with poison running through my veins. I was the one losing my hair, my strength, my dignity. And yet, somehow, I was supposed to feel bad for how hard it was for them. I turned to Sienna, who was leaning against the wall, listening. Sienna, is that how you feel too? She hesitated, then muttered, I just didn't think you'd be this needy. The word stung. Needy. I wasn't needy. I was sick. I took a slow breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. So what do you want me to do? Suffer quietly? Clara sighed. I don't know, Marcus. I just think, maybe we need help. I felt a flicker of hope. We can hire a nurse, I suggested. Her shoulders relaxed. Yes, that would help. I should have felt relief. But deep down, I knew the problem wasn't just the workload. It was that they wanted distance from me. I called the hospital the next morning and arranged for a home nurse to help with my care. When she arrived, she was kind, professional, and efficient. She helped me bathe when I was too weak, kept track of my medication, and made sure I never missed a chemo session. I should have been grateful, but as I sat in my home, feeling more like a patient than a husband, I realized something terrifying. Clara barely looked at me anymore, and Sienna hardly spoke to me at all. It wasn't just distance anymore. It was detachment, and I was beginning to fear that I was already dead to them. When the nurse, Melissa, arrived, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: relief. She was professional, warm, and incredibly attentive. She immediately put together a care plan, structured my meals, adjusted my medications, and even worked with the doctors to track my progress. She knew what she was doing. For the first time since my diagnosis, I didn't feel like I was drowning alone. But I made one critical mistake. I assumed my wife and daughter would be relieved too. At first, things seemed better. Melissa came in 4 days a week, ensuring I ate, took my meds, and got to my chemo sessions on time. She even encouraged me to go on short walks, slowly rebuilding my strength. I no longer had to beg Clara or Sienna for help, and that was the problem. Because once they realized I could function without them, their patience, what little of it remained, completely disappeared. It started with Clara's coldness. I would hear her on the phone with her friends, talking about me like I was an obligation. Yeah, it's been rough. I didn't sign up to be a full-time nurse. He has a real one now, thank God. I was getting burnt out. No, she's not bad. A little too comfortable, though. A little too comfortable? Melissa was nothing but professional. But the way Clara said it made me realize what she was getting at. She felt replaced. Which was ironic, because she had already checked out long before Melissa arrived. Then came the jealousy. I caught Clara staring Melissa down when she was setting up my medications one evening. Her arms were crossed, her lips pursed. I knew that look. I had seen it before, just not over something as ridiculous as a home nurse. Later that night, she rolled over in bed and said, "Do we really need her coming this often?" I sighed. "Clara, I can't do this alone. If you want to take over, we can cut back her hours." She scoffed. "That's not what I meant. I just think you rely on her too much." I turned my head to look at her. Rely on her? For what? Making sure I don't collapse in the shower? Ensuring I don't miss my medication? I exhaled. "Clara, she's doing what you don't want to do." Her jaw clenched. That was it, wasn't it? She wanted me to suffer just enough to feel like I still needed her, but not enough that it became her responsibility. Sienna, on the other hand, just stopped talking to me. Before, she at least pretended to care. Now she barely acknowledged me. She came home from school, disappeared into her room, and didn't come out unless Clara called her for dinner. At first, I convinced myself she was just being a teenager. But then one night, I overheard her on the phone. I had gotten up for water and passed by her room. The door was slightly open, and what I heard broke me. Ugh, I can't stand being in this house anymore. It's depressing. No, I don't even talk to him much. He has that stupid nurse now, so it's not like he needs me. Honestly, I just wish things could go back to normal. Normal. Normal, as in before my cancer. Normal, as in when I wasn't a burden to her. I walked back to my room in silence, my heart heavy. My own daughter resented me for being sick. A few days later, Clara snapped, Melissa had just left after helping me with dinner when Clara stormed into the living room. She stood in front of me, arms crossed. I want her gone. I stared at her. Melissa? Yes. I let out a humorless laugh. You mean the only person actually helping me? Clara's eyes flared. I don't like her here. I sat up, my exhaustion boiling into anger. Then take her place. What? You don't want her here? Fine. But you're going to be the one to get me to my appointments, track my medications, help me on my bad days. Everything she's been doing because you won't. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Because she had nothing to say. I let the silence stretch. Then I spoke again. No? Then she stays. Clara turned on her heel and stormed upstairs, slamming the bedroom door. The next night, her mother called. I could already hear the disapproval in her voice. Marcus, I think it's inappropriate to have another woman taking care of you in Clara's house. I shut my eyes. Here we go. It's not Clara's house, I said. It's mine. There was a pause. Then, she's your wife, Marcus. You should respect how she feels. Respect. Where was the respect for me? For my pain, my suffering, my literal fight to stay alive? I took a deep breath, forcing my voice to stay even. If Clara wants to take care of me, she's welcome to. But she doesn't want to. So I have a nurse. And that's not up for discussion. Another long pause. Then, a clipped, fine. Click. I thought the worst was over. But then came the final betrayal. One afternoon, after another brutal chemo session, I arrived home to find a moving truck parked outside. Confused, I stepped inside. And what I saw made my stomach drop. Boxes. Empty shelves. Closets half opened, their contents gone. Then I saw Clara and Sienna standing by the door, suitcases in hand. Clara looked at me, not with guilt or sadness, but with relief. We're leaving. I stared at her. You're what? She exhaled, rubbing her temples. Marcus, I can't do this anymore. Sienna and I are going to stay at my mom's for a while. My blood ran cold. She was doing this now? Right after chemo, when I was at my weakest. I turned to Sienna. Is this what you want to? She wouldn't even look at me. She whispered it. Yeah. They left. They didn't even say goodbye. They just walked out. And I sat there, alone, in a house that suddenly felt too big. I had feared that cancer would take everything from me. But in the end, it wasn't cancer. It was them. The silence in the house was deafening. For years, I had come home to the sound of laughter, television playing, the clinking of dishes in the sink. Now, all that remained was the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the walls. I sat on the couch, staring at the front door as if expecting Clara and Sienna to walk back in, apologize, and tell me it was all a mistake. But they never did. I wasn't even sure how I felt. Angry? Hurt? Relieved? All I knew was that I was alone. And after everything, I had to keep going. My brother, Dylan, came over the next day. When he stepped inside, his face twisted in disbelief. They actually left? I nodded. His jaw tightened. Unbelievable. I expected pity, but all I got was rage. He sat down across from me and shook his head. Marcus, you gave Clara everything. She never had to work. She lived in a fully paid-off house, and you covered everything for Sienna's future. And she left you the moment things got hard? I didn't respond, because deep down, I knew he was right. Dylan let out a slow breath. I'm taking time off work. I'll stay with you for a while. I shook my head. You have your own family to worry about. You're my brother. You come first. I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that. For the next week, Dylan was my lifeline. He cooked, cleaned, made sure I took my medication. But his time off was limited. He couldn't stay forever. That's when he brought up Lillian. Lillian was his wife's younger sister. She had just separated from her husband, an ugly divorce that had left her with very little. She was also studying radiology at the university, and my house was closer to campus than her current place. She needs a safe place. Dylan's voice was firm. And you need someone here. It makes sense. I hesitated. It felt wrong. Having someone new in the house when the wounds Clara and Sienna left were still raw. But I wasn't in a position to refuse. So, I agreed. Lillian arrived a few days later. She stepped inside with a single suitcase, looking hesitant, almost like she was intruding. "Thank you for letting me stay," she said softly. I waved her off. "No need to thank me. If anything, I should be thanking you for putting up with me." She smiled. "Well, I did sign up to work in a hospital. Taking care of patients is part of the job." She said it like a joke, but something about the way she said patients hit me hard, because that's what I had become, wasn't it? A patient in my own home. But Lillian never treated me like one. She did the things Clara refused to do: grocery shopping, tidying up, handling laundry. But she never hovered. She never treated me like a burden. If I needed help, she helped. If I needed space, she gave it. One evening, I caught her studying at the kitchen table, surrounded by textbooks and notes. I leaned against the counter. "How's school going?" She groaned. "Brutal, but I like it." I smirked. "What's the hardest part?" She looked up at me. "Honestly, learning how to emotionally detach." That one sentence hit too close to home. Emotionally detach. Something Clara and Sienna had done the moment I got sick. As the weeks passed, I slowly adjusted. Lillian never pried into my past, never asked about Clara or Sienna. And that was the greatest gift she gave me. She let me grieve without forcing a conversation. One day, I was sitting on the back porch, staring at nothing, when she walked outside with 2 cups of coffee. She set one beside me and sat down. We sat in silence for nearly 20 minutes. And somehow, that meant more than any words she could have said. Then, the news came. I was cancer-free. The moment the doctor said it, I didn't even know how to react. I should have been elated, but all I felt was empty. For months, cancer had defined me. Now, I was just a man with nothing left. No wife, no daughter. Just a house filled with memories of people who abandoned me. Lillian was the first person I told. She grinned. "That's amazing." I nodded. "Yeah." But I must have looked as hollow as I felt, because her smile faded. She hesitated, then said, "So, what now?" And for the first time since my diagnosis, I realized I had no idea. What now? I had spent so much time fighting to survive that I hadn't thought about what happened after. Then, it hit me. I knew what needed to happen next. I needed to leave this house. I needed to cut ties with my past. And I needed to make sure Clara and Sienna never had a chance to take anything else from me again. So, I filed for divorce. And I made a decision. Lillian would keep the house. She had been there for me when no one else had. She deserved it. I deserved a fresh start. And that's exactly what I was going to get. Surviving cancer wasn't the victory I had imagined. There was no movie moment where I stood in front of a mirror, smiling at my reflection, feeling reborn. Instead, I sat in the hospital parking lot, gripping the discharge papers with shaky hands, staring out the windshield, feeling like a stranger in my own life. I was free of cancer, but I wasn't free of the damage it had done, because cancer hadn't just tried to take my life. It had taken my family, my marriage, my sense of home. And now that I had survived, I realized something. I wasn't going back to the life I had before, because there was nothing left to go back to. The first thing I did after hearing the news? I called my lawyer. I wasn't going to wait for Clara to suddenly decide she wanted her old life back. No, I was going to make sure there was nothing for her to return to. Filing for a unilateral divorce was easier than I expected. Since Clara had left of her own free will, had abandoned our marriage, and had no financial claims over the house, the process was quick. I didn't even tell her about it. I let my lawyer send the papers to her mother's house. If she wanted to pretend I didn't exist, I had no problem returning the favor. Now, there was only one thing left to do. Leave. The house, once my pride, now felt like a graveyard. Every corner reminded me of what I had lost. The dining table, where we once had family dinners, laughing about Sienna's school stories. The living room, where Clara used to curl up beside me, pretending to care about my favorite shows. The bedroom, where I had once thought she'd stand by me, through sickness and health. But the worst part? It was the silence. I had spent months in this house alone, waiting for my wife and daughter to at least check in, to ask if I had survived. They never did. That's how I knew I had made the right decision. The day I told Lillian she could keep the house, she stared at me, completely stunned. Marcus, what? It's yours, I said simply. I don't want it. She blinked. You could sell it. I shook my head. I don't need the money. I need a fresh start. And you've been here for me more than anyone else. Lillian sat down at the kitchen table, running a hand through her hair. I don't even know what to say. I gave a small shrug. Say yes. She let out a breath and nodded. Yes. And just like that, the house was no longer mine. I found a new place in the countryside, a small, quiet house with just enough space for me to start over. No memories, no ghosts of my past. Just me, my new life, and the chance to rebuild. The strangest part? Clara never reached out. She never called. Never asked why the house was no longer in my name. Never tried to fight the divorce. Which meant one thing. She had truly never planned to come back. And honestly, that was fine by me. Because I wasn't waiting for her anymore. I had survived cancer. Now, it was time to survive without her. Moving to a new town felt like stepping into another world. The house was small. Not the grand home I once owned, but it was mine. And that was all that mattered. No more shadows of betrayal. No more ghosts of the past lurking in every room. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The town itself was quiet. The kind of place where people actually knew their neighbors. I kept to myself at first, unsure if I wanted to get close to anyone again. But then, I met Sophia. Sophia was my across-the-street neighbor, a widow in her 60s who spent most of her time on her porch, watching the world go by. She reminded me of the kind of kindness I had forgotten existed. One afternoon, she waved me over. Come sit. You look like a man with a story. I hesitated, but for some reason, I sat down. And slowly, over the next few months, I told her everything. The cancer, the abandonment, the fact that my wife and daughter had never once reached out after leaving. She listened without judgment. Then, she sighed and said, people show you who they are in your darkest moments. Your wife and daughter? They showed you. Her words stuck with me, because she was right. For the first time in over a year, I started moving forward. I picked up woodworking, something to keep my hands busy, to fill the quiet hours. I built furniture, shelves, even started selling small pieces online. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living. And then, just when I thought my past was truly behind me, it came knocking. Sophia called me one afternoon. Marcus, I saw something strange today, she said. 2 women were snooping around your house. My stomach dropped. What did they look like? She described them, and I already knew. Clara, Sienna. I gripped the phone tighter. Did they say anything? Sophia hesitated. They knocked on your door for a while, then just waited in their car. I thought about calling the sheriff, but I figured they might be family. I let out a slow breath. They were. She caught the past tense immediately. Were. They left me when I was sick. Silence. Then, she simply said, if they come back, don't answer. I'll handle it. For the first time in over a year, I felt the old anger boiling inside me. Why now? Why did they suddenly care where I was? They had walked away when I needed them most. Now they were coming back? I didn't trust it. And I sure as hell wasn't going to let them ruin my new life. I should have expected they'd return. After all, Clara and Sienna had a pattern. They only cared when it benefited them. And now? Now they were sniffing around like they were owed something. But I wasn't the same man they left behind. I wasn't weak. I wasn't waiting for them. And I sure as hell wasn't going to let them take anything from me ever again. Sophia called again the next afternoon. They're back. I didn't need to ask who she meant. They're at your door, knocking. I can see them from my porch. My pulse slowed. A cold kind of anger settled inside me. I wasn't going to open the door. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me. So I let Sophia handle it. She walked over casually, greeting them with her usual warmth. Hello there, can I help you? Clara turned, relief flashing across her face. Oh, thank goodness. We've been knocking for a while. We're looking for a man named Marcus. He used to live here. Sophia played dumb. Used to? Clara nodded. Yes, my husband. Well, my late husband. He lived here before he passed away. My jaw clenched. So that was the game she was playing. She was pretending I was dead. I should have been furious, but instead, I found myself smirking. She was about to get a very, very rude awakening. Sophia tilted her head. Oh, that's strange. I live across the street, and I never heard about a death here. Clara shifted, clearly thrown off by the response. Well, it was after a long hospital stay, she said quickly. We're his next of kin. We just need to settle some things with the house. Sophia hummed. Oh, so you have a will then? A death certificate? Clara blinked. What? Well, if you're claiming next of kin, that means there's official documentation. You must have some paperwork from the county, right? Silence. Clara's mouth opened and closed. Then, her voice turned sharp. Who are you to be asking all these questions? Sophia just smiled. I'm just a friendly neighbor. That was when Clara snapped. Her voice rose. Mind your own damn business. This is my husband's house. That was my cue. I stepped away from the security camera and walked toward the door. Time to let them see the ghost they thought they could bury. I opened the door just as Sophia turned to walk back to her porch. And there I was. Alive. Well, and very much aware of their lies. Clara's face went pale. Sienna? She looked like she'd just seen an actual ghost. For a moment, no one said anything. Then, I crossed my arms. Looking for someone? Clara's shock lasted all of 5 seconds before she recovered. Marcus. She forced a smile, her voice dripping with fake relief. You're here. We thought, yeah. I cut her off, I heard. You thought I was dead. Convenient story. Her eyes darted to Sienna, as if looking for backup, but Sienna wouldn't even meet my gaze. Why are you here? I asked flatly. Clara straightened her shoulders. We wanted to check on you. You never called. We were worried. I laughed. Actually laughed. You were worried? I shook my head. You left me. You abandoned me when I was sick. You never once checked in after walking out that door. Marcus, it wasn't like that. I held up a hand. Don't insult my intelligence. She swallowed, but I wasn't done. You're not here for me. You're here because you thought you could claim something. I let my voice drop lower. But there's nothing left for you to take. Her face twisted. Marcus, we're family. I took a slow step forward. No, Clara. You made your choice when you left me to die. Sienna finally spoke. Dad, please, she said, her voice softer than I expected. We didn't think you'd make it. I turned to her. So you figured, what? That I was as good as dead anyway? She flinched. I exhaled sharply, looking between the two of them. You left me. You chose to leave. You don't get to come back just because your lives didn't go as planned. Clara's mask finally cracked. She scowled. Well, I hope you're happy being alone, Marcus. You drove us away. I smiled, stepping back inside. No, Clara. You did that all by yourself. And with that, I shut the door in their faces. Let them finally feel what I felt. Abandoned. I thought that would be the end of it. That after seeing me alive, well, and completely unwilling to entertain their nonsense, Clara and Sienna would take the hint and leave for good. But I had underestimated their desperation. Because when people lose everything, they don't just walk away. They lash out. And Clara? She was about to prove just how unhinged she really was. It happened 3 days later. I was sitting in my home office, deep in work, when I heard a loud crash. Glass shattering. People yelling outside. For a second, I thought maybe there had been an accident. But when I stepped out of my office and saw my front window smashed in, I realized the truth. And when I heard Sophia screaming outside, I knew exactly who was responsible. I stormed onto the porch. And there she was. Clara, breathing heavily, a baseball bat still clutched in her hand. Sienna stood beside her, looking horrified but not stopping her. And surrounding them? My neighbors, including Sophia, trying to hold Clara back as she screamed like a woman possessed. You think you can shut me out, Marcus? You think you can just walk away? I had never seen her like this. She wasn't just angry. She was deranged. My stomach twisted. Because this wasn't about me anymore. This was about a woman who had lost everything and now had nothing left to lose. and that made her dangerous. I walked up, keeping my voice calm but firm. "Put the bat down, Clara." She let out a bitter laugh. "Why? Afraid?" I took another step forward. "You should be." She blinked. "What?" I pointed behind her, at the two police officers stepping out of their car. Her face drained of color. She turned just as the cops reached for their handcuffs. "Ma'am, put the weapon down." Sienna started crying. "Mom, stop." But Clara wasn't done yet. She turned back to me, and before I could react, she swung. The bat came down fast, aimed right for my head, but the officers tackled her before it could land. She was done, finished, and as they pinned her to the ground, I looked at Sienna. She was standing there, frozen, watching her mother lose what little dignity she had left, and for the first time, I felt nothing for her. Not pity, not guilt, not even anger, just nothing. The cops cuffed Clara, leading her to the squad car as she screamed and cursed. They turned to me. "Do you want to press charges?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes." Sienna broke down completely, but I didn't comfort her. She had made her choice long ago. Now, she would have to live with it. Later that night, I did some digging, and what I found didn't surprise me. Clara's mother had died, and the house Clara had been living in all this time, it wasn't hers. It belonged to her mother's cousin, and after she passed, he decided to sell it, which meant Clara and Sienna had been kicked out, homeless, which explained everything. They hadn't come back for me. They had come back for a house to live in. But here's the thing. It wasn't theirs anymore, because I had already signed the deed over to Lillian, which meant they had lost everything. And the best part? That was their own fault. Clara was charged with vandalism, attempted break-in, and assault. Sienna, being a minor, got community service. And me? I finally got what I had been fighting for all along. Freedom. I filed for a restraining order. I changed my phone number, and I went back to my quiet life in my quiet town, knowing, for the first time in years, they could never touch me again. When I first heard the word cancer-free, I thought it meant I would feel whole again. That I'd wake up every morning with a newfound appreciation for life, that I'd breathe easier, laugh harder, and find meaning in every single moment. But surviving cancer doesn't erase the damage it leaves behind, because the cancer might have been gone, but so was my family. And in the end, the betrayal hurt more than the disease ever did. I never expected Clara and Sienna to come back after they left me. I had spent months believing they would never even think about me again. And honestly, I had been okay with that. But when they showed up, when they thought they could just walk back into my life and reclaim what they abandoned, it only proved one thing. They never saw me as a person. I was just a provider, an asset, a means to an end, and once I became too weak to be useful, they threw me away. Now that they were struggling, now that life had finally turned on them, they wanted me to pick up the pieces for them. But the version of me who would have done that? He died the day they walked out the door. The restraining order came through within a week. I made sure there were legal protections in place to ensure they couldn't come near me, my home, or anything I owned. And for the first time since my diagnosis, I slept without feeling like I had to watch my back. I wasn't afraid of them, but I also wasn't willing to give them another chance to hurt me. Clara sat in county jail, waiting for her court date. She had already tried to call me twice. The first time, I let it ring. The second time, I blocked the number. I had nothing left to say, because there was nothing she could say that would change the past. I had given her my loyalty, my love, 15 years of my life, and she threw it all away. I had accepted that. Now, she would have to accept that I was never coming back. Sienna's punishment wasn't as severe. Because she was a minor, she only received community service. I should have felt something for her. Maybe pity. Maybe a sliver of regret for the way things turned out. But when I drove past the side of the road one afternoon and saw her in an orange vest, picking up trash with the rest of the offenders, I felt nothing. Not anger. Not sadness. Just nothing. I had spent months waiting for my daughter to reach out to me. I waited through my worst nights, through the pain and nausea, through the loneliness and fear, hoping that maybe, just maybe, she'd check on me. She never did. She had chosen Clara, and now I had chosen myself. One morning, I was sitting on my porch, sipping coffee when Sophia came over. She placed a fresh loaf of bread on my table, something she had started doing every Saturday morning since everything with Clara unfolded. She sat down, took a sip of her own coffee, and smirked. "So, any more unexpected visitors lately?" I shook my head. "Not a single one." She nodded approvingly. "Good." Then, after a pause, she said, "You did the right thing, Marcus." I looked at her. She meant more than just pressing charges. She meant cutting them out completely. I exhaled. Yeah, I think I finally believe that. I got back into woodworking. I spent my days building furniture, shaping raw materials into something new, something permanent. It felt good to create again, to put my energy into something that didn't feel like a battle. I even started selling a few pieces online, making a name for myself in the community. For the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving. I was living, and it felt good. Then, one afternoon, a letter arrived. There was no return address, but I didn't need one to know who it was from. I recognized the handwriting instantly. Sienna. I stared at it for a long time. Then, without opening it, I threw it in the fire. If she wanted to talk, she had years to do it. She had the chance to stand by me. She chose not to. And now, I was making my choice. The last thing I did was finalize my will. I left everything to charity, every last dime, because the only thing Clara and Sienna had ever cared about was what they could take from me. Now, they would get nothing. Not my house, not my savings, not even a single word from me. They walked away when I needed them the most. Now, I was making sure they could never come back. That night, I stood on my porch, looking up at the stars. And for the first time since my diagnosis, since the moment I thought my life was ending, I felt alive. Truly, fully alive. No more ghosts of the past. No more waiting for people who never cared. No more pain, no more regret. Just me. And the future I had built for myself. I took a deep breath, letting the cool night air fill my lungs. And I smiled. Because this time, my life belonged to me, and no one else. I sat there at that long, polished mahogany table, feeling the weight of the room pressing in on me. The air was thick with tension, the kind you could slice with a butter knife, and the faint smell of my father-in-law's old cigars still clung to the walls even though he'd been gone for weeks. Around me were faces I barely knew, distant cousins, a stiff-necked lawyer with a nasal voice, and Clarissa's sister who kept sneaking glances at her phone. Clarissa was right beside me, her posture perfect, her chin tilted just enough to let you know she thought she was better than everyone here. Jobless, sure, but always acting like she owned the world. Trent, the kid she'd been dragging around lately, hovered behind her like a shadow, his hands stuffed in his pockets, smirking like he'd already won something. I didn't like him, never had, but I kept my mouth shut. That's how I am. I watch. I wait. I'll let things play out. The lawyer droned on, reading the will in that flat, legal tone that makes your eyes glaze over. I wasn't expecting much. My father-in-law never liked me, always thought I wasn't good enough for his little girl. Too quiet, he'd say, like silence was a crime. So when the lawyer got to Clarissa's part, I just picked at the roast beef on my plate, half listening. Then he said it, to my daughter, Clarissa, and I leave the sum of $2 million. $2 million. The number hit the room like a thunderclap. Fork stopped moving. I started her way. I felt her shift beside me, but I didn't look up, not yet. I took another bite, chewing slowly, letting the moment sink in. $2 million. For her. Not us. Her. She didn't say anything at first. The room buzzed with whispers, and I could feel Trent's grin growing wider behind us. Then she turned to me. I felt her eyes before I saw them, sharp, cold, like she'd been waiting for this. I set my fork down, wiped my mouth with a napkin, and finally met her gaze. "I'm done with your broke life," she said, her voice steady, slicing right through me. "I'm leaving for Hawaii with Trent." Just like that. No hesitation, no apology. The words hung there, heavy and final, and everyone around the table froze. I could feel their stares, pity, shock, maybe a little amusement from the ones who never liked me anyway. Trent rocked back on his heels, looking smug, like he'd planned this all along. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just smiled. A small, tight smile, the kind you give when you know something they don't. I set my knife down next to my fork, pushed my chair back, and stood up. "All right," I said, my voice calm, almost too calm. The lawyer blinked at me. Clarissa's sister dropped her phone into her lap. Trent's smirk faltered for half a second, like he wasn't sure what to make of it. I didn't care. I adjusted my jacket, gave the room one last look, and walked out. My footsteps echoed on the hardwood floor, steady and sure, while their whispers chased me to the door. They thought I was broken. They thought I was done, but I wasn't. Not even close. The cool air hit me as I stepped outside, and I took a deep breath, letting it fill my lungs. My truck was parked across the street, same old beat-up thing Clarissa always hated. She'd called it a rust bucket more times than I could count, said it embarrassed her. I climbed in, turned the key, and the engine sputtered to life. Driving home, I kept replaying her words in my head. Your broke life. Broke. That's what she thought of me. That's what she'd always thought of me. Years of me paying the rent, keeping the lights on, working late while she scrolled Instagram and complained about being bored. She still saw me as nothing. And now, with $2 million and that punk trend in tow, she was off to Hawaii. Paradise. Good for her. I pulled into our apartment complex, the one she always said was beneath her, and sat there in the driver's seat for a minute. The streetlights buzzed overhead, casting shadows through the windshield. My hands were steady on the wheel, but inside, something was churning, not anger, not yet, just a quiet kind of heat. I wasn't the guy she thought I was. I'd been careful, kept my cards close, let her believe what she wanted. She didn't know about the late nights, the deals I'd been working on, the money that was starting to roll in. She didn't know because she never asked. And now she was gone, thinking she'd won, thinking she'd left me in the dust. I grabbed my keys and headed inside. The apartment felt different already, emptier, sure, but also lighter. Her stuff was still there. The throw pillows she'd spent too much on, the scented candles she never lit, the half-empty coffee mug she'd left on the counter that morning. I walked past it all, straight to the fridge, and pulled out a beer. The cap popped off with a hiss, and I took a long sip, leaning against the counter. $2 million. Hawaii. Trent. Let her have it. Let her think she'd figured it all out. I wasn't going to chase her, wasn't going to beg. I'd said, all right, because I meant it. She could go. I'd be fine. Better than fine. The TV flickered on as I dropped onto the couch, some late-night show I didn't care about. My phone sat on the coffee table, silent. No texts, no calls, not that I expected any. Clarissa was probably already packing, laughing with Trent about how she'd escaped. I took another sip of beer and stared at the screen, but my mind was somewhere else. 2 days from now, everything would change. I didn't know how yet, but I could feel it coming, like a storm rolling in slow and heavy. She'd made her move. Now it was my turn. And when I played my hand, she'd see what broke really meant. For now, though, I finished my beer, kicked off my shoes, and let the night settle around me. Tomorrow was a new day, and I was ready for it. I woke up to the sound of nothing. No clatter of Clarissa's coffee spoon against her mug, no hum of her blow dryer, no muttered complaints about how I'd folded the towels wrong. Just silence, the kind that fills a room when someone's gone for good. I rolled over in bed, the sheets cool on her side, and stared at the ceiling for a minute. Sunlight slipped through the blinds, painting thin stripes across the wall. It was morning, my first morning alone, and it didn't feel as bad as I thought it would. I got up, stretched, and shuffled to the kitchen in my socks. The apartment looked the same but different, like a stage after the actors have left. Her mug still sat on the counter, lipstick smudged on the rim. I dumped it in the sink and turned on the faucet, watching the water swirl it clean. Eggs. I'd make eggs. Just for me. I cracked 2 into a pan, the sizzle filling the quiet, and stood there with a spatula in hand, letting the smell wake me up. Clarissa was gone, really gone. Last night, after the will reading, she'd come home late, Trent trailing behind her like a stray dog. I'd stayed on the couch, pretending to sleep, while they whispered in the bedroom. Drawers opened and shut. A suitcase zipped. Then the front door clicked, and that was it. She didn't even say goodbye. Didn't need to. Her words at the table, "I'm done with your broke life," had said enough. Now she was on her way to Hawaii with her $2 million, and that kid who looked like he'd never worked a day in his life. Fine. Let her go. I slid the eggs onto a plate, grabbed a fork, and sat at the little table by the window. The view wasn't much, just the parking lot and a dumpster, but it was mine. I ate slow, chewing over everything that had happened. $2 million. That's what it took for her to finally cut the cord. Years of me paying the bills, fixing the car, keeping us afloat while she bounced from one hobby to the next, yoga, painting, some skincare pyramid scheme that cost us $1,000. All of it meant nothing to her. She'd always seen me as a loser, a guy who couldn't give her the life she wanted. Broke, she'd called me. I took another bite, the yolk spilling onto the plate, and almost laughed. Broke. If she only knew. The thing is, I wasn't broke. Not even close. She didn't know because I didn't tell her. I'd been working on something big, real big, for the past 2 years. A cybersecurity startup I'd co-founded with a buddy from college. Late nights at the office, hunched over laptops, chugging coffee while she thought I was messing around or wasting time. She'd roll her eyes when I'd come home at dawn, smelling like sweat and printer ink, and ask why I couldn't just get a real job. I never corrected her. Never told her about the government contract we'd been chasing, the one that finally came through last month. 7 figures. More money than she'd ever dreamed of. But I kept it quiet. Let her think I was scraping by. Let her believe Trent, with his gelled hair and fake tan, was her ticket to something better. I finished my eggs and leaned back in the chair, the wood creaking under me. The clock on the wall said 9:14. I had nowhere to be, not yet. The office could wait. My partner, Dave, was handling the paperwork, dotting the I's and crossing the T's on the deal. We'd celebrate soon, maybe crack open a bottle of something expensive, but today I just wanted to sit with it. Clarissa's last words kept looping in my head. I'm leaving for Hawaii with Trent. Like a line from some bad movie. I pictured her now boarding a plane, sipping champagne, giggling with that punk while they toasted to their new life. She thought she'd won. Thought she'd left me behind in her dust. I stood up, carried my plate to the sink, and rinsed it off. Let her think that. Let her have her moment. The apartment was too quiet, so I flipped on the radio. Some old rock song crackled through the speakers, and I turned it up, letting the guitar fill the space. I grabbed my keys and headed out, locking the door behind me. My truck sputtered to life, same as always, and I drove with no real plan, just away. The streets were busy, people rushing to jobs or dropping kids at school, but I felt separate from it all. My mind was on her, on that $2 million, on what she didn't know. She'd never asked about my work, never cared enough to dig deeper. If she had, she'd have seen the late-night emails, the meetings with suits from D.C., the way Dave and I had been grinning like idiots for weeks. But she didn't. And now she was gone. I stopped at a gas station, filled up the tank, and leaned against the truck while the pump clicked. The air smelled like gasoline and fried food from the diner next door. A guy in a suit walked by, talking loud on his phone, and I wondered if Clarissa would call me. Maybe when she landed, maybe when she realized Trent wasn't all he seemed. I wouldn't hold my breath. She'd made her choice. I paid for the gas and got back in the truck, the engine rumbling as I pulled onto the highway. The road stretched out ahead, long and open, and for the first time in years, I felt light. Free, almost. She was gone, and I was still here. Still me. And I wasn't finished, not by a long shot. Back home, I dropped onto the couch and kicked my feet up. The radio was still on, some DJ yammering about the weather. I closed my eyes and let my mind settle. 2 days. Something told me that's all it'd take for the cracks to show. Her paradise wouldn't last. I could feel it. But for now, I'd wait. I'd cook my eggs, drive my truck, live my life. She'd see soon enough. They all would. I wasn't the guy she thought I was. And when the truth came out, I'd be the one smiling. Not her. Not Trent. Me. I woke up the next day feeling steadier, like the ground under me wasn't shifting anymore. The apartment was still quiet, but it didn't bother me as much. I'd slept better than I had in months. No Clarissa tossing and turning, no Trent's name popping up on her phone at all hours. I got out of bed, pulled on a t-shirt and jeans, and made my way to the kitchen. Coffee this time. I needed something strong to kick my brain into gear. The machine gurgled as it brewed, filling the room with that bitter, familiar smell. I leaned against the counter, mug in hand, and took a slow sip. Yesterday had been about letting her go, today was about me. She didn't know who I really was. That's what kept circling in my head. Clarissa had spent years looking down on me, calling me broke, rolling her eyes at my late nights and my freelance hustle. She'd never asked what I was doing, never cared enough to peek behind the curtain. If she had, she'd have seen a different guy, not the one she walked out on, not the one she thought she'd left in the dust. I set the mug down and ran a hand through my hair, thinking about how I'd played it. I kept my mouth shut, kept my wins to myself. And now she was gone, off to Hawaii with her $2 million and that kid Trent, thinking she'd traded up. She hadn't. She'd just never seen the real me. The truth was, I wasn't some dead-end loser scraping by. I co-owned a cybersecurity startup. Me and Dave, my old college buddy, had built it from nothing. 2 years of grinding, coding until our eyes burned, pitching to suits who didn't get half of what we were saying. Clarissa thought I was messing around, wasting time at the office until 3 a.m. She'd nag me about it, say stuff like, "Why can't you just work a normal job like everyone else?" I'd nod, mumble something vague, and let her think what she wanted. She didn't know about the government contract we'd been chasing, the big one. 7 figures, locked in last month. More money than she'd ever see from her daddy's will, even with her $2 million. But I didn't tell her. I let her believe I was broke, let her laugh at me with Trent behind my back. I grabbed my phone off the counter and scrolled through my emails. There it was, the confirmation from Dave. Signed and sealed, he'd written, with a stupid winking emoji. I smiled, just a little. We'd done it. The deal was real, the money was coming, and I was sitting on something bigger than Clarissa could ever imagine. She'd mocked me for years, my truck, my clothes, my hustle, and I'd taken it. Kept my head down, kept working. Why? I don't know. Maybe I wanted to prove something to myself first. Maybe I just liked the idea of surprising everyone when the time was right. And now the time was close. She'd left me, sure, but she'd left the wrong guy. I finished my coffee and headed to the office. It wasn't much, just a rented space downtown with a couple desks, some computers, and a coffee maker that always broke. But it was ours. Dave was already there when I walked in, hunched over his laptop, his glasses slipping down his nose. "Morning, boss," he said without looking up. I snorted and dropped into my chair. "Don't call me that." He grinned, finally glancing at me. "She gone for good?" I nodded. "Yup. Hawaii. $2 million and that punk Trent." Dave whistled low. "Her loss, man. She's gonna flip when she finds out." I shrugged. "Maybe. Not my problem anymore." We got to work, going over the contract details, making sure everything was tight. The government gig was a game changer, cybersecurity for some hush-hush project they wouldn't even name. Big money, big responsibility. I'd been up half the night last week tweaking the system, making sure it was bulletproof. Clarissa had complained about that too, said I was obsessed, that I cared more about my computer than her. Maybe she was right. But that obsession was paying off now, and she wasn't here to see it. I typed out a few emails, my fingers moving fast across the keys, and felt that quiet heat building in my chest again. Not anger, just focus. I was good at this. Damn good. And she'd never known. The day flew by. Dave ordered pizza, and we ate it straight from the box, talking about next steps, hiring more guys, upgrading the hardware, maybe even moving to a bigger space. It felt real, like something I could hold on to. Clarissa had always wanted flashy stuff, designer bags, vacations, a life she could show off. I'd given her stability instead, and she'd hated me for it. Now I was building something better than anything she'd ever chased, and I didn't need her to see it. But part of me, okay, a big part, wanted her to. Wanted her to stumble across the truth and choke on it. I left the office around 6, the sky turning orange as I drove home. My truck rattled along, same as always, and I thought about her again. She'd be in Hawaii by now, probably sipping some fruity drink with Trent, posting pictures online to rub it in my face. Let her. I pulled into the apartment complex and climbed the stairs, my boots heavy on the steps. Inside, I kicked them off and grabbed a beer from the fridge. The place still smelled faintly of her perfume, but it was fading. Good. I dropped onto the couch, popped the cap, and took a long sip. My phone buzzed, Dave, texting me a link to some tech article about our industry. I skimmed it, then set the phone down. She didn't know. That's what it came back to. Clarissa had spent years sleeping next to me, eating the food I cooked, living under the roof I paid for, and she didn't know who I was. I'd hidden it too well, my startup, my success, my plans. Let her think I was broke. Let her believe Trent was an upgrade. I leaned back, the couch creaking under me, and stared at the ceiling. 2 days ago, she'd sat across from me at that mahogany table and ended it. Now I was here, and she was there, and the gap between us was wider than she'd ever guess. I wasn't finished. Not even close. And when she figured that out, when the mask finally dropped, she'd see what she'd thrown away. But by then, it'd be too late. I was halfway through my coffee the next morning when my phone buzzed on the counter. I didn't rush to grab it. Figured it was Dave with some update about the contract or maybe a bill I'd forgotten to pay. The apartment was quiet, just the hum of the fridge and the drip of the faucet I kept meaning to fix. I took another sip, savoring the bitterness, and let the day settle around me. Clarissa had been gone 2 days now, and I was getting used to the space she'd left behind. No more of her stuff cluttering the bathroom counter, no more of her voice cutting through the air. It was just me, my coffee, and whatever came next. The phone buzzed again, insistent this time. I sighed, set the mug down, and picked it up. A text from her sister, Lauren. Have you seen Clarissa's Instagram? You need to. I frowned, my thumb hovering over the screen. Instagram wasn't my thing, too much posing, too much noise, but I knew Clarissa lived for it. She'd probably posted some smug shot of her and Trent on a beach by now, all smiles and filters. I didn't want to look, didn't want to give her the satisfaction of my attention. But Lauren's tone felt off, urgent. I opened the app, typed in Clarissa's handle, and there it was. The video loaded fast, a 30-second clip of her poolside in Maui. She was lounging on a chair, sunglasses perched on her nose, a drink with a little umbrella in her hand. The ocean sparkled behind her, blue and endless, and she was talking, her voice loud over the sound of waves. New life, new vibes, she said, smirking at the camera. Finally free of the dead weight. Aloha, losers. The clip ended with her blowing a kiss, Trent laughing in the background like some wannabe movie star. Dead weight. That was me, I guess. I watched it again, my jaw tightening, but I didn't feel mad, not yet. Just cold. She thought she'd won, thought she'd left me behind for good. Let her think that. I scrolled down to the comments, expecting the usual, her friends gushing about how gorgeous she looked, how lucky she was. But it wasn't like that. Not even close. The first one I saw said, "Wait, is Trent with that other girl already?" Then another, "Saw him at the bar last night with some chick. Clarissa, you okay?" More piled up, strangers, locals, people who didn't even FO. "He's cheating on her, LOL," one wrote. "Took her money and ran," said another. I stopped scrolling, leaned back against the counter, and let it sink in. 2 days in paradise, and her perfect little plan was already cracking. I didn't laugh, didn't smile, just stood there, staring at the screen. Part of me wanted to feel bad for her. She'd cashed out her $2 million, ditched me, flown off to Hawaii with that punk, and now this. Trent cheating on her, right under her nose, while she paid his way. It was almost too perfect. I set the phone down and finished my coffee, the mug warm in my hands. The comments kept coming. I could see the notifications lighting up, but I didn't need to read more. She'd posted that video to flex, to show the world she'd upgraded. And now the world was laughing at her. Good. I grabbed my keys and headed out. The truck started with its usual groan, and I drove toward the office, the radio off this time. My mind was too full to let music in. Clarissa's voice from the video kept playing in my head, dead weight, aloha, losers, and I wondered how long it'd take her to notice Trent's game. She wasn't stupid, not really, but she was blind when it came to him. Always had been. I'd seen it months ago, the way he'd linger too long when he dropped her off, the way he'd smirk at me like he knew something I didn't. I'd let it slide. Figured she'd see through him eventually. Maybe she would now. At the office, Dave was on a call, pacing with his headset on. He waved me over, but I shook my head and dropped into my chair. I opened my laptop, pulled up some code I'd been tweaking, and tried to focus. The screen blurred for a second, numbers and lines swimming together, but I blinked it away. Work. That's what mattered now. Not her, not Trent, not some Instagram video. The contract was rolling, the money was coming, and I had a life to build. I typed for a while, my fingers steady, the rhythm pulling me back to myself. Dave hung up and flopped into his chair. "You see the numbers yet?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah, looks good." He grinned. "Better than good, man. We're set." We talked shop for an hour, deadlines, upgrades, a new guy we might bring on. It felt normal, solid, like the ground I'd been missing. But in the back of my mind, Clarissa's video kept nagging at me. Not her words, those I could shrug off, but the comments. Trent cheating. If it was true, she'd find out soon. And then what? I pushed the thought away and kept working. Lunch came and went. Sandwiches from the place down the street. And by afternoon, I was deep in the system, testing patches, making sure everything held tight. The government didn't mess around with this stuff, and neither did I. I left the office late, the sky dark and heavy with clouds. Driving home, I thought about her again. Paradise was a lie, she had to know that by now. $2 million didn't buy loyalty, didn't buy real. Trent was a leech. I'd clocked him from day one, and she'd handed him everything. I pulled into the apartment lot, cut the engine, and sat there for a minute. My phone was quiet, No more texts from Lauren. No calls. I climbed the stairs, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. The air was still, the faint trace of her perfume almost gone now. I kicked off my boots and grabbed a beer, the cold bottle sweating in my hand. I didn't check Instagram again. Didn't need to. The comments had said enough. She'd flaunted her new life, and it was already falling apart. I took a sip, leaned against the counter, and let the day unwind. 2 days ago, she'd walked out, fork and knife still on the table. Now she was in Maui, probably staring at an empty pool chair where Trent used to be. I wasn't happy about it, not exactly. But I wasn't surprised either. She'd bet on the wrong guy. And me? I was still here, still standing, still building. Paradise could keep her. I had something better coming. I was sprawled on the couch that night, the TV flickering with some late-night rerun I wasn't really watching, when my phone lit up on the coffee table. The clock said 3:17 a.m., too late for anyone normal to be calling. I rubbed my eyes, reached for it, and saw the number. Clarissa. My gut twisted, just a little. I hadn't heard from her since she left, not a word beyond that Instagram video flexing her new life in Maui. Now here she was, calling me in the middle of the night. I let it ring once, twice, then picked up. Didn't say anything, just held the phone to my ear and waited. Tom. Her voice came through, shaky, cracked around the edges. She was crying. I could hear it in the way her breath hitched. Tom, are you there? I stayed quiet for a second, letting the silence stretch. Yeah, I said finally, keeping it flat. What's going on? She sobbed then, loud and messy, the kind of crying she used to do when she wanted me to feel bad for her. Can you wire me money? Please? I don't have anything left. My hand tightened around the phone. Money. That's why she was calling. Not to say sorry, not to explain, just to ask for cash. I sat up slow, the couch creaking under me, and took a breath. What happened? I asked, though I already had a pretty good guess. She sniffed, her words tumbling out fast. It's gone. Half of it. Half the inheritance. $1 million. Trent took it. He took my card, my jewelry, everything, and he's gone. I woke up and he wasn't here, and the bank called. They said someone drained the account overnight. I'm stuck here, Tom. I can't pay the hotel. I can't get home. Please, I need help. Her voice broke again, and she started crying harder. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, the TV's blue light bouncing off the walls. $1 million. Trent had played her, just like I'd figured he would. I wasn't shocked. Guys like him don't stick around for love. They stick around for what they can take. I didn't say anything right away. Part of me wanted to hang up, let her sit in the mess she'd made. She'd left me, called me broke, run off to Hawaii with that punk, and now here she was, begging. But another part of me, the part that remembered the years we'd spent together, the quiet nights before she started hating me, kept me on the line. How'd he get your card? I asked, my voice steady. She hiccuped through her tears. I don't know. I trusted him. We were sharing everything, the room, the account. I didn't think she stopped, like she couldn't even say it. I could picture her now, sitting in some overpriced hotel room, mascara streaking down her face, alone. Paradise had turned into a nightmare, just like I'd thought it would. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and grabbed a glass of water. The phone stayed pressed to my ear, her sobs filling the quiet. So he's gone, I said, more to myself than her. Took your stuff and bailed. She didn't answer, just cried louder. I took a sip, the cold water hitting my throat, and leaned against the counter. 2 days ago, she'd been gloating poolside, calling me dead weight. Now she was broke, stranded, and calling me at 3 a.m. I should have felt something, anger, maybe, or satisfaction. But I didn't. Just a dull kind of emptiness. Tom, please, she whispered. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I set the glass down, my fingers tapping the counter. You've got $1 million left, don't you? I asked. She sniffed. Yeah, but it's tied up. The bank froze it when they saw the withdrawal. I can't touch it yet. And the hotel's threatening to call the cops if I don't pay by morning. I almost laughed, almost. The cops. After all her big talk, she was one bad night away from a Maui jail cell. How much do you need? I said, keeping my tone even. 5,000, she mumbled. Just to cover the room and a flight back. I'll pay you back, I swear. 5 grand. Pocket change compared to what she'd had, what she'd thrown in my face. I walked back to the couch and sat down, the phone still against my ear. The TV was showing some infomercial now, a guy yelling about a blender. I muted it. You sure Trent's gone? I asked. She let out a shaky breath. Yeah, his stuff's gone too. The front desk said he checked out hours ago. I think he's with someone else. People were saying it online, but I didn't believe it. Online. The Instagram comments. I'd seen them. Everyone had. Trent cheating. Trent running off with some local girl while Clarissa footed the bill. She'd ignored it, probably told herself it was jealousy. Now it was real. I rubbed my face, the stubble rough under my hand. So what's your plan? I said. Come back here and what? She went quiet, then whispered, I don't know. I just need to get out of here. Please, Tom. I'll figure it out after. I didn't owe her anything, not a dime, not a word. She'd made her choice, walked out with her head high and her boyfriend on her arm. But hearing her like this, scared, lost, it stirred something I didn't want to feel. Not pity, not love, just memory. I sighed. I'll think about it, I said. Go to sleep. Call me tomorrow. She started to protest, but I hung up before she could finish. The apartment went silent again, just the hum of the fridge in the background. I tossed the phone onto the cushion beside me and leaned back, closing my eyes. $1 million, gone. Trent had gutted her, left her with nothing but a maxed-out credit card and a broken heart. I could wire the money, $5,000 was nothing to me now, not with the contract money rolling in. But did I want to? Did I want to be the guy she ran back to when her paradise fell apart? I stood up, turned off the TV, and headed to bed. The sheets were cold as I climbed in, my mind spinning. She'd called me broke, left me for a lie, and now her nightmare was just beginning. I could help her, or I could let her sink. I stared at the ceiling, the shadows shifting as a car passed outside. 2 days ago, I'd smiled and said, all right. Now she was begging, and I was the one with the power. I didn't know what I'd do yet. But one thing was clear, her perfect little world was gone, and I was still here. Still standing. Still me. I woke up late the next morning, the sun already high, spilling through the blinds and warming the room. My phone was still on the couch where I'd left it after Clarissa's call, and I didn't rush to check it. Her voice, sobbing, desperate, stayed with me, echoing in my head like a bad dream I couldn't shake. She'd begged me for money, $5,000 to get her out of Maui and away from the mess Trent had left her in. $1 million gone, stolen by the guy she'd ditched me for. I should have felt something smug, maybe, or relieved that her paradise had crashed so fast. But I didn't. Just a quiet kind of stillness, like the calm after a storm's passed through. I got up, stretched, and made my way to the kitchen. Coffee again strong and black, the way I liked it. The machine hissed as it brewed, and I leaned against the counter, staring at the wall. She'd called me at 3:17 a.m., scared and stranded, her voice cracking like she'd finally hit bottom. I hadn't said yes. Hadn't said no either, just told her to sleep and call me later. Now it was almost noon, and I wondered if she'd try again. Part of me hoped she wouldn't. I didn't want to be her lifeline, didn't want to play the hero after she'd walked out calling me broke. But another part of me, the stubborn part, kept replaying her words. I'll pay you back, I swear. Like she still thought money could fix this. I poured the coffee into a mug and took a sip, letting the heat wake me up. My phone buzzed on the couch, but I ignored it for now. I didn't need to hear her crying again, not yet. Instead, I grabbed my laptop from the table and opened it. Work. That's what I'd focus on. The contract was moving fast. Dave had sent me a draft of the next phase last night, and I needed to review it. But before I dug in, I did something else. I opened LinkedIn. My profile was barely used, just a headshot and some old job history I hadn't touched in years. Clarissa always said it was pathetic that I didn't network enough. Today, I changed that. I typed slow, deliberate, keeping it simple, proud to close our largest cybersecurity deal to date. 7 figures. Here's to building in silence. I attached a photo Dave had taken a few weeks back, me and him outside the office, grinning like kids after we'd signed the papers. Nothing flashy, just proof. I hit post and leaned back, the laptop warm on my thighs. It wasn't for her, not really. It was for me. For the guy she'd called broke, the guy she'd left behind. But I knew she'd see it. She followed me on there, probably to keep tabs, and this would hit her like a slap. I closed the laptop and finished my coffee, the mug empty too fast. The phone buzzed again. I sighed, set the mug in the sink, and walked over to pick it up. 2 messages. One from Dave, post looks good, man. Phone's already ringing. The other from Clarissa, can we talk? Sent an hour ago. I stared at it, my thumb hovering over the screen. She'd seen it. I knew she had. LinkedIn doesn't hide views, and she was nosy enough to check. 7 figures. More than her 2 million, more than she'd ever thought I could touch. I didn't reply, just left it on read and tossed the phone back onto the couch. Let her stew. Let her sit there in Maui, broke and alone, wondering how I'd pulled it off. I grabbed my keys and headed out. The truck started with its usual rumble, and I drove to the office, the streets quiet for a Saturday. My mind kept drifting back to her call. 1 million gone. Trent had cleaned her out, card, jewelry, everything, and left her with nothing. I'd seen it coming, hadn't I? The way he'd smirked, the way he'd stuck to her like glue after the will reading. She'd trusted him, handed him her future, and he'd run off with it. I pulled into the office lot, parked, and sat there for a minute. The building was empty. Dave wasn't coming in today, but I liked the quiet. It gave me space to think. Inside, I flipped on the lights and dropped into my chair. The desk was a mess, papers, coffee cups, a half-dead plant Dave swore he'd water. I opened my laptop again, pulled up the contract files, and started reading. Numbers, timelines, deliverables, it grounded me, pulled me out of the chaos in my head. The deal was real, the money was real, and I'd built it. Not her, not Trent, me. I worked for hours, the silence broken only by the hum of the air conditioner. My phone stayed quiet, no more texts, no calls. Good. I didn't want to hear from her yet. By late afternoon, I leaned back, my neck stiff from staring at the screen. The LinkedIn post had blown up, likes, comments, messages from old college buddies and random suits wanting to connect. I skimmed a few. Congrats, man. Knew you'd kill it. Let's grab a beer sometime. I didn't care about most of it, but the numbers made me smile. People were watching now. People knew. And somewhere out there, Clarissa was watching too. I could picture her sitting in that hotel room, scrolling through her phone, seeing my name next to 7 figures. Who's broke now? I shut the laptop and stood up, stretching. The sun was dipping low, casting long shadows through the window. I locked up and drove home, the truck rattling over potholes. Back at the apartment, I grabbed a beer from the fridge and dropped onto the couch. My phone buzzed again. Clarissa. Tom, please. I saw your post. I'm happy for you. Can we just talk? Happy for me. Sure. I left it on read again, took a sip of beer, and turned on the TV. Some game was on, noise to fill the quiet. She'd called me broke, left me for a thief, and now she wanted to talk. After I'd shown the world what I'd been hiding. I leaned back, the bottle cold in my hand. She was stuck, hotel bill piling up, no Trent, no cash. And I was here, sitting on a deal she'd never seen coming. I didn't need to answer her. Didn't need to wire her anything. She'd made her bed, and I wasn't climbing in to fix it. The game droned on, and I let the night settle around me. She'd call again. I knew she would. But for now, I'd wait. Let her see what broke really looked like. Let her figure out who'd won. I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing like a hornet's nest, the screen lighting up with notifications I didn't expect. It was Sunday morning, early enough that the apartment was still cool and quiet, the kind of quiet I'd started to like. I rolled off the couch, where I'd fallen asleep watching the game, and grabbed the phone, squinting at the flood of alerts. Not texts, not calls, social media. I rubbed my face, trying to shake the fog of sleep, and opened the first one. It was a tag from Dave on TikTok, of all places. You see this yet? He'd written. I tapped the link, and there it was, Clarissa, front and center, in a mess she couldn't hide. The video wasn't hers, someone else had posted it, some random account with a blue checkmark and 2 mini followers. It was shaky, filmed from a distance, but I could see her clear as day. She was standing outside a hotel in Maui, her hair a mess, her voice loud and sharp as she argued with a guy in a uniform, probably the manager. I told you, I'll pay it tomorrow. She snapped, waving her phone like it was proof. The guy shook his head, arms crossed, and said something I couldn't hear. The caption read, "Millionaire's daughter gets owned, left broke by her boyfriend in Hawaii." The comments were brutal. She ditched her husband for this? Karma's fast. Trent's living his best life while she's crying LOL. I scrolled, my thumb moving slow, and watched the view count climb 50K, 60K, 70K. Viral. She'd gone viral, and not the way she wanted. I set the phone down and walked to the kitchen, my bare feet cold on the floor. Coffee. I needed coffee. The machine gurgled as it brewed, and I leaned against the counter, letting the video replay in my head. She looked desperate, cornered, nothing like the smug Clarissa who'd smirked poolside 2 days ago. Her new life was crumbling, and now the world knew it. I poured the coffee into a mug and took a sip, the heat waking me up. My LinkedIn post had hit her yesterday, 7 figures, my quiet win. Now this. Trent had taken her money and run, and the internet was dragging her for it. I didn't feel bad, not exactly, but I didn't feel good either. Just steady. The phone buzzed again. Another tag, this time on X. I opened it and saw a thread, some local in Maui spilling the whole story. Saw that guy Trent at a bar last night, it started. He was with some girl, not the one from the hotel. Paid cash for everything, big stack of it. Heard he bought a condo down here too, all in his name. The replies piled up fast. Wait, he used her money for that? She's such a clown. Husband's probably laughing his ass off. I wasn't laughing, not yet, but I couldn't argue with the rest. Trent had played her hard, taken $1,000,000, ditched her, and set himself up with a new girl in a new place. Clarissa was left with nothing, homeless in paradise, ashamed, and broke. I sat at the table, mug in hand, and kept scrolling. Her own TikTok was a war zone now. That poolside video she'd posted, her gloating about leaving me, was buried under comments tearing her apart. How's that new life going? Trent said thanks for the condo. Should have stayed with the deadweight. Even her followers, the ones who used to kiss up to her, were turning. You deserve better, one wrote, like that made it softer. Karma's real, said another. I took a long sip of coffee and set the mug down. She wanted attention, wanted to show off. Now she had it, millions of eyes watching her fall. My phone buzzed again, Clarissa this time. A text. I'm sorry. I saw the video. I didn't mean for this. I stared at it, my jaw tight. Didn't mean for what? For leaving me? For flaunting Trent? For getting scammed? I didn't reply, just left it there and I cracked 2 into a pan, the sizzle cutting through the quiet, and cooked them slow. The smell filled the kitchen, grounding me. She was sorry now, sure. Sorry the world was laughing. Sorry her plan had blown up. But not sorry for me. Not really. I ate at the table, the phone face down beside me. The fallout was public now, messy and loud, and I didn't have to lift a finger. Trent had done the work, taken her money, bought a condo, flown in some girl from Ohio, according to the X thread. Ohio. That detail stuck with me. He'd had a girlfriend all along, probably waiting in the wings while he milked Clarissa dry. I finished my eggs, rinsed the plate, and grabbed my keys. I needed air, needed to move. The truck started with its usual groan, and I drove nowhere special, just out. The streets were lazy, Sunday traffic light. I rolled the window down, let the breeze hit my face, and thought about her. Homeless. That's what the post said. The hotel had kicked her out, no money, no credit, just a suitcase and a phone full of hate. I could have wired her the $5,000 she'd begged for last night. Could have gotten her a flight back. But I hadn't. She'd called me broke, left me for a lie, and now she was paying for it. I pulled into a gas station, filled the tank, and leaned against the truck while the pump clicked. A guy walked by, nodding at me like we knew each other. I nodded back, my mind still on her. Back home, I dropped onto the couch and checked my phone again. The TikTok video was at 200K views now, the X thread trending. News sites were picking it up, clickbait headlines like heiress scammed by boyfriend in Hawaii disaster. Her name was everywhere, her face splashed across screens. I opened LinkedIn instead. My post was still buzzing, comments rolling in. Inspiring stuff, Tom. Silence is golden. I smirked, just a little. She'd see that too, my win next to her loss. Who's broke now? The day dragged on. I cleaned the apartment, threw out her old magazines, wiped down the counters, erased the last traces of her. The phone stayed quiet, no more texts, no calls. She was out there, drowning in the fallout, and I was here, standing tall. Trent had her money, the internet had her pride, and I had my life. I grabbed a beer, popped the cap, and sat back. The TV flickered on, some old movie I didn't care about. I didn't need to watch her crash, I'd seen enough. The world was doing the work for me, and I was fine with that. Better than fine. I was halfway through my coffee the next morning when I heard the knock, soft at first, then louder, insistent. It wasn't Dave, he'd text before showing up, and no one else ever came by unannounced. I set the mug down, my stomach tightening, and walked to the door. Through the peephole, I saw her. Clarissa. No makeup, no sunglasses, just her standing there in a wrinkled t-shirt and jeans, a suitcase at her feet. Her hair was pulled back, messy, and her eyes were red, like she'd been crying for days. I froze, my hand on the knob. She'd flown back. Somehow, she'd gotten the money for a ticket and come straight here. I opened the door slow, the hinges creaking, and she looked up at me, her face crumpling. "Tom," she whispered, her voice barely there. "I made a mistake." I didn't say anything, just stepped back and let her talk. She dragged the suitcase inside, the wheels scraping the floor, and stood there, hands twisting together. "I'm sorry," she said, tears spilling over. "I shouldn't have left. I shouldn't have said those things. Trent, he took everything, and I was so stupid." And now she stopped, choking on a sob, and reached for my hand. I pulled back, just enough to keep the space between us. Her touch felt wrong now, like it belonged to someone else. "You're back," I said, keeping my voice flat. "How'd you get here?" She wiped her face with her sleeve, sniffing. "I sold my watch, the one Daddy gave me. Got enough for a flight. I had to come back, Tom. I had nowhere else to go." "Nowhere else?" That hit me harder than I expected. She'd burned every bridge, her friends, her followers, her new life, and now she was here, on my doorstep, begging. I crossed my arms and leaned against the wall, watching her. "What do you want?" I asked. She looked down, her shoulders shaking. "I just need a place to stay. Just for a little while. I'll figure things out, I promise. Please." I let her words hang there, heavy in the quiet. 2 weeks ago, she'd sat across from me at that reading, smirked, and said she was done with my broke life. Now she was broke, really broke, and I wasn't. I'd seen the videos, read the posts. Trent had taken $1 million, left her stranded, and the internet had torn her apart. She'd flown back with nothing but a suitcase and a sold watch, and here she was, asking me to save her. I didn't move, didn't answer, just looked at her. She'd lost the confidence, the shine. All that was left was a scared woman who'd bet wrong. "I know I hurt you," she said, her voice cracking. "I know I don't deserve this. But I'm begging you, Tom. I have nothing left." She stepped closer, her hand reaching out again, and this time I let it hover there before stepping back. "You didn't just hurt me," I said, my tone steady, cold. "You bet against me. You looked me in the eye and said I wasn't enough. And you lost." Her face twisted, more tears falling, but I didn't stop. "You left with Trent, with your $2 million, thinking you'd won. Now he's got half of it, and you've got nothing. That's on you." She sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands, sobbing loud and messy. I stood there, arms still crossed, watching her fall apart. Part of me remembered the old days, when we'd laugh over takeout, when she'd curl up next to me on nights like this. But that was gone. She'd killed it, walked out with her head high and her boyfriend on her arm. Now she wanted me to pick up the pieces. "I was wrong," she mumbled through her hands. "I see that now. You're doing so good, Tom. Your company, your deal. I saw it on LinkedIn. I'm proud of you. I need you." I turned away, walked to the kitchen, and grabbed a glass of water. Not for her, for me. My throat was dry, my head spinning. Proud of me. Funny how she said that now, after the world knew, after I'd shown what I'd been hiding. I took a sip, the glass cool in my hand, and looked back at her. She was a wreck, shoulders slumped, eyes puffy, nothing like the Clarissa who'd gloated poolside. "You don't need me," I said. "You need a safety net. I'm not that anymore." She lifted her head, staring at me like I'd slapped her. "Tom, please. I'll do anything. I'll make it right." I set the glass down, my fingers tapping the counter. "Anything. Like that meant something now. You can't stay here," I said. "Not after what you did. You made your choice." She started crying again, louder this time, but I didn't budge. "Where am I supposed to go?" she wailed. "I don't know," I said. "Your sister, maybe. A hotel. Figure it out." She shook her head, desperate. "I don't have money for a hotel. Lauren won't take me. She's mad about the videos. Please, Tom, just one night." I wanted to say no, wanted to push her out the door and lock it behind her. But she looked so small, so broken, that I hesitated. "One night," I said finally. "Then you're gone." She nodded fast, wiping her face. "Thank you. I'll leave tomorrow, I swear." I didn't answer, just grabbed my keys and headed for the door. "I'll be back later," I said. "Stay out of my stuff." She mumbled something, but I was already out, the door clicking shut behind me. I drove aimless, the truck rumbling through the streets. She was back, but not really. No return ticket to the life we'd had. She'd burned that bridge. I stopped at a diner, ordered a burger, and ate slow, the noise of the place drowning out my thoughts. She'd begged, cried, reached for me, but it didn't change anything. I wasn't her husband anymore, not in the way that mattered. Back home, I found her asleep on the couch, suitcase still by the door. I left her there, went to bed, and locked my room. One night. Then she'd be gone, and I'd be free. I woke up early the next morning, the apartment still dark, the air heavy with quiet. Clarissa was gone from the couch when I stepped into the living room. No suitcase, no trace of her except a folded blanket and a note on the coffee table. I picked it up, my fingers brushing the paper. Tom, it read in her shaky handwriting. I'm sorry. I'm going to Lawrence. Thank you for last night. I won't bother you again. That was it. No begging, no tears, just a goodbye. I set the note down and stood there, letting the silence sink in. She'd left, just like I'd told her to. For the first time in weeks, the place felt fully mine. I made coffee, the machine humming as it brewed, and leaned against the counter, replaying the night before. She'd shown up broken, suitcase in hand, pride gone, asking for a place to crash. I'd given her one night, nothing more, and now she was out of my life again. Lauren's place made sense. Her sister might be mad, but she wouldn't turn Clarissa away forever. I took a sip, the coffee hot and strong, and felt something lift off my shoulders. No more late-night calls, no more texts begging for money. She'd said she wouldn't bother me again, and I believed her. She'd run out of moves. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through it. No messages from her, just a few from Dave about work. Good. I didn't need her voice in my head anymore. I opened my laptop, pulled up the contract files, and got to work. The deal was picking up speed. Meetings with the government guys next week, new hires starting soon. Dave had been running point, but I needed to step up too. I typed out replies, scheduled calls, and felt the rhythm of it pull me in. This was my life now, my company, my wins. Clarissa had tried to claw her way back in, but I'd held the line. She didn't fit here anymore. By noon, I was done with work and restless. The apartment felt too small, too still. I grabbed my keys and headed out, the truck starting with its familiar sputter. I drove to the office, but it was empty. Monday, but Dave had taken the day off. I didn't mind. I liked the quiet, liked having the space to myself. I sat at my desk, opened the laptop again, and stared at the screen. My LinkedIn post was still buzzing. Hundreds of likes, comments piling up. People I hadn't talked to in years were reaching out, saying stuff like, proud of you, man, and let's catch up. I didn't reply, just let it sit there, proof of what I'd built. I leaned back in the chair, the springs creaking, and thought about her note. I won't bother you again. It felt final, like a door slamming shut. Good. I didn't want her back, not as a wife, not as a ghost. She'd made her bed with Trent, lost her money, lost her shine. The world had seen it. Those videos, those posts. And now she was fading into silence. I stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the street below. Cars rolled by. People hustled along, life moving forward. I was part of that now, not stuck in her shadow. Back home, I grabbed my phone and called my assistant Mila. She picked up fast, her voice bright. Hey Tom, what's up? I paced the living room, feeling the itch to do something big. Book me a trip, I said. Santorini. Solo. Next month. She laughed, surprised. Santorini? Fancy. You deserve it. I'll get it set up. I thanked her and hung up, the idea settling in. Greece, blue water, white buildings, a place I'd always wanted to go. Clarissa had hated the idea. Too boring, she'd said. Now I'd go without her, just me and the open sky. I spent the afternoon cleaning up, really cleaning this time. Her candles went in the trash, her leftover clothes in a box for donation. The apartment started to feel new, like it belonged to someone else. To me. I opened the windows, let the breeze sweep through, and stood there, breathing it in. My phone buzzed. Dave, checking in. Mila says you're off to Greece? He texted. Yeah, I wrote back. Time to live a little. He sent a thumbs up, and I smiled. The company was growing, new contracts, new people, and Mila could handle things while I was gone. I trusted her. I trusted myself. That night, I filed for divorce. Sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, filled out the forms online, and hit submit. No lawyers, no fuss, just a clean break. Clarissa's name was off everything now, bank accounts, lease, all of it. I didn't need her signature. She'd walked away first. The confirmation email came through, and I read it twice, letting it sink in. Done. Over. I grabbed a beer, popped the cap, and sat on the couch, the TV off for once. The silence wasn't empty anymore, it was mine. I thought about Santorini, sun on the water, quiet nights, no one to answer to. I'd earned it, hadn't I? Years of grinding, hiding my wins, letting her think I was nothing. Now I was free, free of her, free of the weight she'd put on me. She'd gone silent, slipped back to Lauren's, and I was moving forward. The company was expanding, the money was rolling in, and my life was starting over. I took a sip of beer, the bottle cold in my hand, and let the night stretch out. No more Clarissa, no more past. Just me. I slept hard that night. No dreams, no interruptions. Woke up to sunlight and the sound of birds outside. Coffee, truck, office. The routine felt good, solid. Mila texted me flight details. Santorini in 3 weeks. I grinned, picturing it. Clarissa was gone, her voice quiet, her shadow lifted. I didn't need revenge, didn't need her to see me win. I just needed this, my freedom, my life. And I had it now. Every piece of it. I stood at the edge of the stage, the lights hot on my face, the crowd a blur of suits and ties stretching out in front of me. It was 6 months later, and I was in a conference hall in San Francisco, about to give a keynote at a tech summit. My tie felt tight, but I didn't fidget, just took a deep breath and stepped up to the mic. The screen behind me lit up with the headline. From broke husband to millionaire CEO, how silence became his power move. The room went quiet, hundreds of eyes on me, and I started talking. 6 months ago, I said, my voice steady. I was sitting at a table, watching my life change. Not because I wanted it to, but because someone else decided it should. I paused, let the words hang. They didn't know the half of it yet. I told them the story, not all of it, just enough. How I'd co-built a cybersecurity startup, worked nights while the world slept, chased a government contract that turned into 7 figures. I didn't mention Clarissa by name, didn't need to. The headlines had done that for me. People saw me as one thing, I said, but I was something else. I kept quiet, kept working, and when the time came, I let the results speak. The crowd nodded, some scribbling notes, others leaning forward. I could feel the energy shift, they wanted more. I gave it to them, numbers, timelines, how we'd scaled the company, how silence had been my edge. They ate it up. Backstage after, my hands were still buzzing. Mila was there, grinning, handing me a water bottle. You killed it, Tom, she said. They're calling you a legend already. I took a sip, the cold hitting my throat, and shrugged. Just told the truth. She laughed. Yeah, well, the truth's pretty damn good. We walked out together, past people clapping me on the shoulder, saying stuff like inspiring, man, and great talk. I nodded, kept moving. The summit was packed, tech guys, investors, reporters, and my name was everywhere. Posters, programs, even a guy with a mic who cornered me for a quick interview. How'd you do it? He asked. Stayed quiet, I said. Let the work show. He scribbled that down, and I slipped away. I'd flown in from Santorini the week before, 3 weeks of sun, sea, and nothing but my own thoughts. The trip had been everything I'd wanted. Quiet mornings with coffee on a balcony, walks through whitewashed streets, nights staring at the stars. No Clarissa, no past, just me. The company had hummed along without me, Mila and Dave holding it down. We'd hired 10 new people, locked in 2 more contracts, moved to a bigger office. The money was steady now, more than I'd ever dreamed, and I was good at this, running it, growing it. Santorini had been my reset, my proof I could live for myself. Now I was back, and the world was watching. I grabbed a coffee from the summit's lounge and found a quiet corner. My phone buzzed, Dave, texting a link. Check this out, he wrote. It was an article, fresh off the press. Tom Ellis, the silent millionaire, wows tech summit. I skimmed it. Keynote highlights, quotes from my talk, a photo of me mid-sentence, looking sharper than I felt. Ellis turned personal betrayal into professional triumph, it said, proving resilience pays off. Betrayal. They meant Clarissa, even if they didn't say it. Her story had faded. Those viral videos, the Maui mess, all old news now. Mine was the one they told. I set the phone down and sipped my coffee, the noise of the summit fading around me. She'd gone silent after that night on my couch. No calls, no texts, just the note promising she'd leave me alone. I'd heard through Lauren she'd moved to a small place, got a job at some boutique, kept her head down. The divorce had gone through fast, papers signed, no fight. She didn't ask for anything, didn't have a leg to stand on. $2 million turned into zero, Trent long gone with his condo and his Ohio girl. I didn't check her socials anymore, didn't need to. She was a ghost, and I was here, alive, winning. I finished the coffee and headed to the hotel, the city buzzing outside my window. My room was high up, the view all lights and glass, and I stood there, hands in my pockets. 6 months ago, I'd smiled at her goodbye, set my fork and knife down, let her walk away. She thought I was broke, thought Trent was her future. Now I was the guy on stage, the guy in the headlines, the guy they couldn't stop talking about. I didn't need revenge, didn't need her to hurt more than she already had. I just needed to win. And I had. Big. The next day, I flew home. The truck was waiting in the lot, same old rust bucket, and I drove it back to the apartment, the streets familiar and mine. Mila had the office running smooth, new hires trained, contracts rolling, and I settled back in. Life was good, steady, full. I cooked dinner that night, steak, rare, the way I liked it, and ate alone, the TV off, the quiet my own. My phone buzzed once, a congrats from an old buddy who'd seen the keynote online. I replied quick, then set it down. I thought about her sometimes, not often, just flashes. Her smirk at the wall reading, her sobs on the phone, her shadow on my doorstep. She'd never seen this coming, never saw me coming. Neither had Trent, or her followers, or the world. I'd built it all in silence, let them think what they wanted, then showed them the truth. The company was mine, the money was mine, the life was mine. I didn't need to shout it. They saw it now. Headlines, handshakes, a story that wouldn't quit. I grabbed a beer, popped the cap, and stepped onto the balcony. The air was cool, the sky clear, stars winking down. 6 months ago, I'd been the broke husband, the deadweight. Now I was the legend, the guy who'd turned it around. Clarissa was gone, her noise faded, her bet lost. I took a sip, the bottle cold against my lips, and let the night wrap around me. They never saw it coming, but I did, and that was enough.